Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at this interesting question. Differentiate x cubed minus 3x squared plus 1, and then second, find the coordinates of the turning points of the graph of y equal to x cubed minus 3x squared plus 1. So the first question is quite easy. No problem. If you know, once you know how to differentiate, that shouldn't be an issue. The problem is the second question here, and this talks about points. So that means that there are 2 points. We have this graph here that looks like a polynomial. Usually when you have your x-axis and y-axis like this, it usually comes something like this. It usually has 2 turning points. Now you might be asking what a turning point is. A turning point are those points in a graph where the graph stops decreasing and begins to increase, or stops increasing and begins to decrease. So this point is a turning point, this point is a turning point, because in this point it stopped decreasing and then began to increase, and at this point it stopped increasing, or whichever way you want, maybe when you're looking at it like this or like this. So but you get the point. So that is what a turning point is all about. All right, so first of all, let us deal with the A and then we'll talk further. So the A part says differentiate x cubed minus 3x squared plus 1. So that is the change in y over the change in x. So this will give us 3x squared, because 3 comes down, minus 3 times 2x plus 1. So this is basically what we have. So at the end of the day, we have 3x squared minus 6x plus 0, actually, because this is actually 0. Sorry about that. So this is actually 0. When you differentiate a constant, it becomes 0. So the final answer is 3x squared minus 6x. So this is what we have. So the B part says that find the coordinates of the turning points of the graph. So it's still the same graph, it's still the same line that we're dealing with, but now we want to find the turning point. Now there's a mistake that students make that I would like to point out, and which is why I made this video, and I will show you in the course of solving it. So whenever you are looking for a turning point, the turning point of a line is where dy over dx is equal to 0. In other words, where the slope at that point is equal to 0. Now, some of you might be wondering, or you might be asking, why does it have to be equal to 0? Well, that's because when you have the graph like this, this graph moves this way. As soon as it reaches here, the slope becomes 0. That means the graph or the motion stops a little bit before it begins to decrease. So before it reaches here, there's a little pause before it begins to go up again. So at this point and at this point, the slope of the graph becomes 0, and that is why the turning point is always equal to 0. So that's just a brief explanation. So let us continue. So dy dx has to be equal to 0. So that implies that 3x squared minus 6x must be equal to 0. So let us solve this equation. So we have a common factor. There's a common factor between 3x squared and 6x, and that is 3x. So 3x comes outside, and then we have 3x squared divided by 3x, and we have x here minus 2. So this is what we have, equal to 0. So just like we said before, in our previous video, is either this is equal to 0 or this is equal to 0. So this means that 3x is equal to 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. Now this is where students have problem, because by the time they finish solving the value for x, for example in this equation here, x is equal to 0 when you divide both sides by 3, and in this equation here, x is equal to 2 when you move this 2 to the other side of the equation. So we have that x is equal to 0 or 2, and most students, they stop here and tell you that this is the coordinate. Now this is where it is wrong. You will get marks for all these ones you solved, but the final answer is wrong. So this is wrong. So we need to put the corresponding values of x in the original equation. Now, this is another mistake that students make. They put it in this equation instead of the original equation. When you put it in this equation instead, it's useless because these are the values of x that made this equation to be 0. So you will just get 0 all through. So you put it in this equation, which is the original equation. So let's move on to find the values of y. So for x equal to 0, first of all, we have that y is equal to 0 cubed minus 3 0 squared plus 1. So this is 0 minus 0 plus 1. So it means that y is equal to 1. So where x is equal to 0, y is equal to 1. This is the first coordinate. Then what about x equal to 2? So for x equal to 2, we have y to be equal to 2 cubed minus 3 2 squared plus 1. So 2 cubed is 8 minus 2 squared is 4. So 3 times 4 is 12 plus 1. So what do we have here? So 8 minus 12 plus 1 is what? This is 8 minus 12 plus 1 is minus 11. So 8 minus 11 is minus 3. So where x is 2, y is equal to minus 3. So these are the two coordinates we have. So we have 0 and 1, and then we have 2 and minus 3. These are the turning points. So I hope you learned a lot from this video. If you did, why don't you share, like, and also more importantly, subscribe to this channel to support me. This will encourage me to make more videos like this in the future. So thank you very much, and I'll be seeing you in another video. Bye.